I would like to introduce my Chief Justice, a great legal mind. He will tell you he's actually been in a de jure movement for almost his entire life. The one and only, well, that's what you told me in Sheriff Mack, remember? The one and only brilliant man, Mr. Ken Cousens.
Thank you very much. How's my volume? Well, it's nice to see all of you gathered here, assembled, as CW said. I'd like to see by a show of hands who here is here today as their first impression, first understanding, introduction to the Republic. Show of hands. Great. Okay, I have a question for you. Do you have a clear idea of what the difference between a republic and a democracy is? Okay, are you all clear? Who is still not clear? Well, not many hands, but I'm going to tell you this anyways. Here's a very simple illustration of the difference between a republic and a democracy. There's 3 wolves and a sheep. They come together and decide to form a government. In a democracy, majority rules as to what's for dinner. In a republic, the 3 wolves must absolutely protect the rights of the sheep. Okay? Do you know that the rights and the capacity, the standing in law of one man or woman in a republic is stronger than 300 million people in a democracy? Okay? On the other hand, of course, 300 million people in a republic can transform this world. Even 1 million people in a republic can literally transform our country and transform this world. The reason is, in a republic, we are the law. Now, that doesn't mean, as that last video said, we're an anarchy, which is the lack of law, lack of authority, chaos, but it means an orderly coming together in a social compact in which the rights of the individual are paramount and the capacity of the individual to hold the grounding in law is also supreme. So, as Shailene and Kelby mentioned, I've been studying this for a long time. So everybody here today got to tell a little bit of personal history. I'll tell you a little bit of my personal history. When I was a very small boy, I looked around in a little boy way in my perception of reality, and I innately, inherently felt something was drastically wrong. Don't ask me how I knew that per se. There wasn't any specifics, but I just knew there was something deeply wrong in this world. So I committed myself at a very young age to figure it out. And thank you for saying that I have a little bit of intelligence. Just a little. But I committed myself to apply my intelligence to figure out what is wrong in this world. So I set 2 goals, really. One is I set out to create the world or establish the world as my home. I wanted to be at home everywhere in this world. And I wanted to figure out what was wrong, because in my home, it is not acceptable for people to be starving. It is not acceptable for people in my home to be suffering the way billions of people suffer on this planet. And at the same time, I grew up believing, as I was told, as I experienced as a young boy, that this was the greatest country in the world. As I grew and matured in my exploration of what was going on in this world, what was going on in this country, I came to understand that, in fact, at one and the same time, we are the greatest country in the world, and at the same time, we are the most rogue state on this planet that is purposefully pursuing an agenda that is not protecting the rights of the sheep, but trying to have that sheep for dinner. The sheep is the people, obviously, the people of this world. So part of my exploration was to understand how could a very small number of people, just a small few thousands of people, control 6 billion people? It doesn't make sense. Except one thing that I have seen is, believe it or not, it is by our acceptance, our consent, our allowance of what is going on. So as C.W. pointed out earlier, are we okay? As C.W. pointed out earlier, when one person stands and says, I do not consent, I do not agree, I do not accept and allow this anymore, that's powerful. When two stand, it's more powerful. But when thousands and millions of people stand and come together, it cannot be stopped. So the other thing I like to do was to put jigsaw puzzles together. The more complex, the better I liked it. And I didn't realize at the time, but I was training myself to look at complex, multi-layered structures and how to see the implicate order, the template of the emerging picture. Because as you know, a jigsaw puzzle has a picture. And the goal is to put it all together. But there are layers of encoding into that picture in a jigsaw puzzle. There's the shapes, there's the colors, there's the design, and as it emerges, you see an overall template of the whole picture coming together. So when I set out to find out what was wrong in this world, I started exploring what was those multi-layered levels. And about 20 years ago, I started studying law. And law became the galvanizing focus of understanding how this world has been put together to be controlled and owned by a very small number of people. As I describe it, history is the story of the evolution of something we call law. And there's an underlying real law, a standard. We could call it God's law, nature's law, law that is in balance, that honors all beings, honors all life. But in the course of history, that foundation of law has been turned upside down and inside out. And what we have is the similitude and the mirror image, which is backwards, of real law. So history is the evolution of law that has evolved to the point it's been usurped and turned inside out and upside down. And out of that system of distorted or mirror image law has come something out of which has come what we call money. So history and law and money has been utilized as a very complex codified system to do what? To bind the people of this planet and use the people to harvest the natural resources and have the labor and the intellectual capacity of those people with those resources to literally build our own prison. But the ultimate sense is we retain the capacity. And we live in a country that has established itself on fundamental foundations. And I'm going to read something for you because there's a question that we in the Republic that we have been working together this last year are asked frequently, which is, what is the authority? Who gave you the right or the authority to come together and do what you're doing? So as CW said, I'm going to borrow CW's time machine. I'm going to go back into the 1770s. And he mentioned and quoted one specific point of a document that we know as the Declaration, which was the unanimous declaration of the 13 united, small u, United States of America. This is a little booklet that a gentleman over there is offering. It's called The Declaration and Constitution in Modern English. I don't have the original form of the Declaration, but I'm going to read you a little bit of this in modern language. It says, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to sever the political bonds that have tied them to another, and to assume among the powers of the earth a separate yet equal sovereignty, which the laws of nature and nature's God grant them, a respect for the opinion of others requires that they should fully declare the reasons which forced them toward that separation. This was written 240 years ago, but it is precisely what is happening today. It is the basis and the foundation of the authority that we, the people, have, because this is a foundation document that has never been challenged, it has never been negated, and it has been sustained by over 200 years of our history in America and throughout the world. It is probably the most respected document on this planet. It goes on to say, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and gifted by their Creator with unalienable rights. Unalienable means they cannot be bonded, they cannot be attached, they cannot be utilized for anything other than the inherent intrinsic capacity of the individual to have life and liberty and land and freedom. Among these are the right to life, the right to live in freedom, and the right to pursue happiness. Now, in order to secure these rights, people establish and empower governments, which in turn derive their valid powers from the people that it governs. However, whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these objectives, it is the right of the people to reform the government to its original design and intent, or destroy that government. I don't agree with that word destroy that's here. Not to destroy, but to abolish and to reconstitute. We're not here to destroy anything. We are, in fact, at peace with the United States. We are neutral and we are non-belligerent. We are here to live and coexist because we have the inherent right, as this document established and has been accepted by the world, to reconstitute our own form of self-determination and self-governance. To abolish that government and establish a new government on a foundation of principles and policies that to them are most likely to support their safety and happiness. Truly, caution advises us that long-established governments should not be reformed for trivial or fleeting causes. Frankly, experience has taught us that people are more inclined to be tolerant as adversities are tolerable up to a point, rather than to correct themselves by destroying, again, we don't like that word, shifting out of the forms of government to which they have grown accustomed. Have we all not been exceedingly tolerant of the conditions in this country for a very long time? However, when government oversteps its boundaries with endless injustices and injuries and bullish intrusions and usurpations resembling an absolute despotism which reduces them to tyranny, and as C.W. said, it is their right and it is their duty